My exhaust temperatures start to get too high, I'm going to start emitting a lot of emissions. Now your old truck drivers, your old truckers used to have a barometer gauge, an exhaust temp gauge. And they used to drive off of that and the tach. You weren't worried about the speedometer because back in the day you weren't going to get a speeding ticket. The truck wasn't capable of it. But if he started getting his tach up, or his tach starts to go down too low, and his exhaust temperatures start to go up too high, he's in the wrong gear. So he's going to upshift or downshift depending. He's probably going to downshift because he's lugging the engine. So he's going to have to drop a gear, speed the engine up. It's not working as hard because it's in a different ratio, so it's not generating as much heat. His exhaust temps start going down, and his tachometer goes up a little bit. And as long as it's not in the red range, that's where he drives. So he's forced to drive the grapevine at 30 miles an hour so he doesn't overheat his exhaust and start damaging the motor. Okay? Now, we do this differently. When you spec a truck or a bus, you've got a lot of variables. I can design, or I can kind of put where I want that peak torque to come in when I decide the final drive ratio and the ratios I want in my transmission. So for example, you got a large truck, Chris? A 1-ton? Who's got a 1-ton? Okay. If you buy a 1-ton truck, pickup truck, you're usually buying that to tow a trailer. Usually. Okay? And it's going to have what they call steep gears or low end gears. Okay? This is going to have something like where I turn the output of the transmission I turn the axles. For every 4.11 turns into the differential, I get 1 turn out of the axle. Okay? What that does is it makes the engine turn faster at lower speeds. So I get to my peak torque on that engine at significantly lower highway speeds than I would if I had a car where I turn the differential input 2.73 times to 1 turn out of the axle. That means that at the same road speeds, the automobile with the 2.73s is turning lower RPM than the truck. So the truck gets to its peak torque quicker than the automobile, but it's going significantly slower. Okay? Now, this is how builders determine what the workload is going to be on the truck. So if I got a truck that I'm going to put the trailer towing package on, can you still do that? Or do they not have that anymore?
Yeah.
Do they? Okay. Trailer towing package is going to be a package where the truck is going to be designed to reach a peak torque at low engine RPM for fuel efficiency and emissions. Now, with the newer transmissions with all these overdrives, you're still going to be able to get a reputable road speed to keep up with traffic without going out of your peak torque band, the range of where the engine's working its most hardest at its most efficient. All right? And this is all done by designing the gear ratios. Oh, it's not there anyway. I'm pointing at my imaginary transmission. The gear ratios in the transmission and the final drive ratio in the differential. Whereas if I get a truck without the towing package, because I'm not towing a fifth, I'm just hauling bodies around for the mob. I gotta watch that because some of my. So I might get not as steep a gear because I'm not hauling as heavy a load, so I can go down the freeway at higher speed. Tractor trailer guys do this. They got to look at what is the truck doing. If I've got a little 18-ton rated city tractor pulling a Coca-Cola trailer through town, mostly with some light freeway, I don't need 800 horsepower. 200 horsepower with 400 foot-pounds of torque because red light, damn it. Okay? I need to get to the torque relatively soon. You know, low engine speed because of fuel and emissions. Okay, now, if I'm going cross country with 80,000 pounds behind me, that little tractor ain't gonna get it. Okay, I'm gonna be, wide open throttle, peak horsepower, less than efficient torque, just to keep up with traffic. In fact, I think it's J.B. Hunt, it's a carrier for hire, look, huge hauler, cargo hauler.
Yeah, owner operators.
No. Well, they have some owner operators, they got some company riders, okay? But what they've experimented with is via satellites, if you're going across Arizona where there's no mountains, they'll dial your horsepower back.
Oh, wow.
Because you don't need 600 horsepower to go from here to Phoenix. It's flat. So they'll dial you in 300 horsepower. You're maybe cruising in 8th gear, partial load. Less horsepower, less fuel consumed. Horsepower takes fuel. Fuel takes money. Fuel means emissions, right? So if you're going through Arizona, you're going from here to Phoenix, I dial you back to 300 horsepower, you're not using all that fuel. You're not making all those emissions. You don't have 300 horsepower, but you're probably still in your peak torque curve, right? Now, if you're going through Colorado, different story. I'm going to give you all 800 horsepower because you're going up and down hills. There's nothing I can do about that. So this is where horsepower and torque comes in. What do you plan on doing? If you're a drag racer, you want a lot of horsepower because you don't have a lot of time to do the work you got to do. But if you're pulling semis, disabled semis up the road, you got a lot of work to do. You better not be in a hurry. Make a sense of?
Yes.
Questions? All right, so what's the difference between a spark ignited engine and a compression ignition engine?
Compression ratio, and the fact that you don't have an ignition system.
Well, you kind of do. Your injection system is your ignition system. It's more fuel related than ignition related, but it pulls both terms. Okay? What is it about a spark plug that lights my fuel air mixture off? Is it the pretty purple spark? The heat.
The added heat.
The heat. How many times does a crankshaft have to turn on a 4-stroke motor engine to get a power stroke? Two. Name the 4 strokes in the order they occur. Intake.
Compression and exhaust.
Well, wait a minute, you missed the money shot.
Power stroke compression.
Intake, compression, power, exhaust. Suck, squeeze, bang, blow. Suck in the air, you squeeze it, the big bang goes off, and you blow it out the exhaust. 2 strokes have the one or the other valves open. Which of the 4 strokes have valves open?
Exhaust.
Exhaust is one. What's the other one where a valve is open?
The intake.
2 strokes have the valves closed. What are they?
Compress.
And money shot, power, right? So 2 strokes have valves open, intake and exhaust. 2 strokes have valves closed, compression and ignition or power. Okay? Now, if I have a restriction in the breath in, the intake stroke, or I have restriction in the breath out, the exhaust stroke, can it affect the engine's performance?
Yes.
Absolutely. If I have a restriction on the breath in, I'm affecting the volumetric efficiency of the cylinder. I'm not putting as much air in it as I possibly can. If I have a restriction on the breath out, I'm not getting all of the burnt fuel out, so therefore I can't bring in as much oxygenated rich air. Without oxygen, whatever's in there is not a whole lot of use to me because it will not support combustion. So if I have leftover combustion gases in the cylinder, then I don't have a full cylinder load of oxygenated rich air. Is the power output of the engine going to be affected? Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay? So when we get into how the engine operates, and we start talking about performance problems, some of the things you have to consider are, is there anything affecting, it's like you, if you have a cold and you're having trouble breathing in, and I ask you to run a mile, your mile times are not going to be very good versus when you're in peak condition. Okay, if the engine can't breathe, it can't work. Some of the symptoms of that will be excessive heat, excessive fuel, excessive emissions, and lower power output. Okay, we good? Alrighty, go where you need to go.
Void,
Huh?
void,
Oh, the board?
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Void, cut the void.